Imagine arriving in a quiet American town where every smiling neighbor is protecting a deadly secret. What starts as a routine assignment for a temporary police chief quickly turns into a bloody war involving corrupt cops, hidden millions, and the Yakuza. Our story actually begins thousands of miles away in Osaka, Japan. 3 Yakuza members sit before their ruthless boss, staring at 3 sharp knives laid out on the table. They disobeyed orders, and the price of survival is high. The boss gives them a brutal choice: sacrifice a finger or die. 2 of the men make the sacrifice to earn a second chance, while the third hesitates and is quickly eliminated. The 2 survivors are immediately given their next assignment: travel to a tiny, quiet American town called Normal. 3 weeks later, we meet a man named Ulysses. He is stepping into a police cruiser with an officer named Mike, having just arrived in Normal to serve as the temporary chief of police. The previous chief, Anthony, passed away at that moment, leaving a void in this nearly deserted town. Ulysses only plans to stay for 2 months until a permanent replacement is elected. His goal is simple: keep his head down, do his job, and leave the town exactly as he found it. But as they drive past a roadside sign, something catches his eye. The tiny population voluntarily raised over $16 million to build a new city hall. For a town this small, that number makes absolutely no sense, and it is the first sign that something here is deeply wrong. At the station, Ulysses is immediately greeted by a complaining resident and Deputy Blaine, an ambitious officer who makes it clear he wants the permanent chief position. Ulysses smiles it off and heads into his office to look over the paperwork. He discovers that the previous chief died of severe hypothermia, essentially freezing to death. But the real shock comes when he opens the station's armory. It contains enough heavy military weaponry to equip an entire battalion. The armory manager, Sally, has no real answers. She disclaims Chief Anthony was constantly hoarding weapons. Ulysses tries to shake off the uneasy feeling, telling himself to just let things slide and focus on the work. But the strange discoveries are only beginning. When Ulysses goes to the local diner, he finds World War II rifles lining the walls. The next day, after waking up from a recurring nightmare, Mike takes him to break up a dispute at a hardware store. There, Ulysses notices a heavily padlocked cabinet. The owner nervously claims it just holds tools for removing tree roots. Before he can ask more, a neighbor drags him away over a yarn delivery mix-up. Ulysses is colorblind, so he can't tell the colors apart, but he does notice a police radio scanner hidden in her shop. She quickly dismisses it as an old hobby project. Unfortunately for Ulysses, the real trouble is just around the corner. That night, Ulysses attends Anthony's wake at the mayor's house. The local doctor mentions that Blaine found the old chief frozen near the shore. Mayor Kepner approaches Ulysses, warmly offering him the permanent job and hinting at how good life can be here. At that moment, an argument breaks out outside. Blaine is blocking a young woman from entering. It turns out to be Alex, the dead chief's daughter. Later at the diner, Ulysses opens up to a sympathetic waitress named Mira. He reveals a dark memory from his past. A young girl once begged him for help against her abusive father, but he didn't believe her. When he finally investigated, the girl had a gun. He tried to disarm her, but she shot her father, then turned the weapon on Ulysses. He fired in self-defense, killing her. The guilt ruined his marriage, and his ex-wife still refuses to answer his calls. The next morning, Ulysses encounters a young woman named Lori trying to break into a vending machine. Realizing she's a thief, he decides to play dumb and kindly helps her get the food anyway. Her partner, Kit, watches anxieties from the shadows. That night, Ulysses finds Alex drinking heavily in her car, holding a handgun. He sits with her, and she drops a bombshell. The mayor didn't want her at the wake because her father was murdered for opposing the town's corrupt leadership. After his death, the mayor seized everything, leaving her homeless. Ulysses safely confiscates her gun and offers her a warm jail cell to sleep in for the night. What he doesn't realize is that this act of kindness will save his life. The next day starts normally, but everything shatters when the bank alarm blares. Lori and Kit have stormed the building, demanding the vault, but there is a major problem. The registers only hold $2,000. As Kit screams at the teller, an elderly customer suffers a sudden heart attack, prompting the thieves to actually stop and help him with his medicine. And that's when everything goes off the rails. The bank guards reveal themselves to be the disguised Yakuza members from Japan. One of them secretly calls their boss to report the chaos before ambushing Kit with a knife. Lori opens fire, and a fierce shootout begins inside the lobby. Outside, Ulysses, Blaine, and Mike pull up to the scene. Recognizing Lori's car, Ulysses prepares to walk in and negotiate, but his deputies are in response paralyzed with terror, whispering frantically to figure out what to do. At that moment, Blaine's phone rings with a direct order. As Ulysses approaches the entrance, Blaine raises his weapon and shoots his own chief in the back. Thankfully, the bullets hit Ulysses' protective vest. Stunned by the ultimate betrayal, Ulysses spins around and fires back, blasting off a piece of Blaine's ear. Mike loses his mind and starts shooting wildly into the building, accidentally killing the innocent bank employees. Seeking cover from his own men, Ulysses runs inside and meets up with Lori and Kit. The panicked customers flee past them. Lori is bewildered, asking why the police are trying to kill their own chief. Ulysses has no answers, assuming the deputies are trying to rob the place themselves. He orders the bank manager to unlock the As Chaos Spreads vault so they can hide. Once inside, they're stunned to find mountains of cash and heavy gold bullion. The panicked manager at that moment draws a hidden gun to escape, but in his trembling fear, he accidentally shoots and kills himself. Outside the back door, Mike tries to sneak in, but Ulysses detects the movement and fires through the metal, driving him back. Looking at Lori and Kit, Ulysses realizes they only have one chance to survive. Whether they like it or not, they're on the same side now. The vault phone rings. It is Mayor Kepner on the line, and he finally lays out the twisted truth. The entire town of Normal is a laundry machine for the Yakuza's illegal American profits. Every resident gets a cut of the cash, and anyone who asks questions, like former Chief Anthony, gets eliminated. Kepner offers Ulysses a cold deal. Execute the two thieves, and he can walk out alive. Ulysses doesn't even bother answering and slams the phone down. Inside the wooden crates stacked around them, Lori and Kit discover a gold mine of heavy weaponry. The trio gears up, ready for war. At that exact moment, a severe winter storm rolls in, plunging the entire town into total darkness. Ulysses uses the blackout to his advantage. He launches an explosive right out the front door, blowing Mayor Kepner to pieces on the street. Laying down a heavy wall of fire, Ulysses creates a distraction, allowing Lori and Kit to slip out and escape into the shadows. Back in town, a surviving Yakuza guard named Joe warns the remaining townspeople that their Japanese boss is already on his way, and failure is not an option. Ulysses and his crew sprint through the freezing streets, dodging gunfire from hostile neighbors. They manage to slip into the dressmaker's shop to hide. Ulysses asks the owner, Mary, for help and tunes into her police scanner. But a chilling voice comes over the airwaves, ordering Mary to eliminate the chief immediately. Mary pulls a weapon and fires. Ulysses tries to reason with her, before long avoiding hurting an old lady, but she keeps shooting. Lori tackles her to the ground, but during the struggle, Mary's accidentally killed. The situation is growing more desperate by the minute. Down the street, the corrupt townspeople gather inside an ice cream parlor, which doubles as an illegal ammunition depot. Joe is trembling with fear, knowing the Yakuza boss will show no mercy if the money is compromised. But Blaine reassures him, pointing out that the blizzard has in response trapped Ulysses inside the city limits, leaving them with no exit. Back in town, in a quiet moment, Ulysses patches up Kit's wounds. They realize their only ticket out of this nightmare is the heavy snowplow parked at the police station. But as soon as they step outside, a resident shoots Ulysses in the chest, knocking him hard to the pavement. Weakened but saved by his vest, Ulysses orders Lori and Kit to leave him and run for the station. Before he can recover, the hardware store owner drags him inside, igniting a fierce brawl using whatever tools they can grab. The owner, before long, scrambles toward his heavily padlocked cabinet to open it. Realizing the danger, Ulysses manages to take him down just in time. When he inspects the cabinet, his blood runs cold. It isn't filled with tree root tools, it is packed to the brim with dynamite and explosives. Elsewhere, another armed resident corners Lori and Kit. When the man stops to reload, Kit grabs a heavy gold brick from his bag, charges forward, and bashes him with it. Lori joins the fight, and a stray bullet strikes a Chaos Spreads overhead sign, sending it crashing directly onto the resident and killing him instantly. But their relief is short-lived, as more corrupt officers arrive at the scene. At that moment, a glowing flare lands at the officer's feet. It is Ulysses throwing the hardware store dynamite. Might before long tries to throw a stick back, but it detonates in his hand, ending his life instantly. Ulysses uses the chaotic explosion to regroup with his team. They reach the police station garage and before long try to start the, as chaos spreads, snowplow. Sally, the armory manager, sneaks up behind them with her gun raised. Ulysses arrives just in time to stop her, causing her to trip over a loose wire. In a freak accident, a police car slips off its hydraulic lift, crushing her instantly. Ulysses orders Kit and Lori to take the snowplow and escape, refusing to go with them. He insists on staying behind to finish this nightmare once and for all. As the snowplow roars out into the night, the corrupt officers realize their new chief is still hiding inside the building. Ulysses retreats into the armory, locking and loading for his final stand. At that moment, Mira steps out of the shadows, shooting him squarely in his armored vest and forcing him to drop his weapon. With a cruel smile, she hands him a drink to mock his situation. Ulysses is stunned to realize that Mira was the true mastermind behind Chief Anthony's murder. Anthony wanted to take his daughter and run, so Mira pretended to help him, drugged his drink, and left his unconscious body to freeze to death on the beach. As Mira raises her gun to execute Ulysses, a shot rings out. Mira collapses dead. Alex stands there with a smoking gun. Before locking her in the cell earlier, Ulysses had secretly returned her father's pistol to her for protection. With the clock ticking, Ulysses and Alex steal an armored police van, blasting right past Blaine's heavily armed men and heading straight back to the bank. Ulysses calls Blaine on the radio, spinning a brilliant lie. He claims Alex has rigged the entire vault with dynamite, meaning if anything happens to them, the money goes up in smoke, and the Yakuza boss will execute every single corrupt cop in town. Ulysses offers a clever compromise. Clean up the street, hide the bodies, and pretend the alarm was just a routine car accident. Terrified of their boss, the cops agree. When the Yakuza boss finally arrives and steps into the vault, everything looks pristine and perfectly organized. Believing the crisis is over, Blaine invites everyone to the local restaurant for a celebratory dinner. The owner pops open a bottle of expensive champagne, but the cork shoots off with incredible force, striking a loose display fixture on the wall. This triggers a bizarre, comedic chain reaction across the room until a loaded antique rifle hanging on the wall at that moment fires. The stray bullet travels straight through the air, striking the Yakuza boss right in the head and killing him instantly. Total madness erupts. As chaos spreads, a shootout breaks out between the terrified Yakuza gang and the corrupt police, wiping out both sides. Joe corners Ulysses in the kitchen, but after a desperate struggle, Ulysses takes him down. As the gunfire falls silent, the restaurant is in response quiet. Everyone is dead except for Ulysses, Alex, and a stunned Blaine. Ulysses calmly walks out of the kitchen holding a fresh slice of pie, and the three survivors sit together in the ruins, eating in silence. Ulysses pulls out the chief's badge and slides it across the table to Blaine, leaving the town's future in his hands. A month later, Ulysses is back home in Texas, having brought Alex with him to help her start a new life. He dials a familiar number, and this time his wife finally answers the phone. As he gently explains the wild story of his journey, he realizes his mission is finally complete. The nightmare is finally over. For the first time in a long time, the town of Normal is truly quiet.